Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
My name is Bruce. My name is Robert.
My name is Michael.
My name is Sadachika.
Michael.
Don. My name is Mark.
Baruch.
My name is Robert.
Francisco. I'm David.
George. Paul. I'm Brian.
My name is Ray.
Peter.
My name is Jeff.
I'm Jerry. My name is Roy. I'm Richard.
I'm Jim.
Jay.
Anne.
I'm Hal. I'm Amos.
My name is Oswaldo.
My name is Michael.
My name is David.
I'm Margaret. Thank you. Welcome, Anne. Who's new? Is anyone else new to me? Well, let's see. So now I will introduce Jana Drakka, who is excuse my pronunciation.
I'll do it in Scottish. Gengetsu Junsei. There you go.
Dharma Transmission in the Soto Zen Buddhist Lineage from Zenkei Blanche Hartman, Jana's nonprofit organization, Jana Drakka Community Services, provides a wide range of services including support groups, workshops, classes, and talks. Jana's community work is based in harm reduction principles, a way to meet everyone with complete acceptance, and allows for a client-centered modality. There are 3 meditation groups each week in San Francisco, which are free and open to everyone. For details and contact info, you can visit janadrakka.com. Jana travels widely to teach harm reduction meditation in universities, churches, shelters, and Zen centers. Counseling and retreats are always available upon request.
Thank you. Sounded just like a commercial. Thank you. It's just wonderful to be back with you all again. I always so much enjoy coming and being with all my brothers. It's just wonderful. And if I look a bit tired, it's because I got here on Friday and I spoke Friday night and I spoke Saturday afternoon and I'm speaking today. So luckily, as you know, it's not actually me. There's just some words come out of this mouth, so we don't have to worry about papers and reading it and all that kind of thing. Friday night I spoke at the San Francisco Bay Area Sex Worker Festival and did stand-up comedy. And it's a great festival running all week. I can highly recommend it. You can find it online, sfbayareasexworkerfest.com. Then yesterday I was doing stand-up comedy again for Wonder Dog Rescue up at Wildside West, which used to be a very wonderful home base kind of place, but the owner died recently. Pat died a couple of years ago. And so I was doing stand-up comedy basically facing a pool table with people lounging on it. And then the rest of the audience was lounging on the bar, and then back there was most of the crowd who were neighbourhood people, not the crowd that used to be there, said she, trying to use right speech. And they were all watching football on television. So it was kind of challenging, when half of your audience is watching a football game, And in fact, Friday night was interesting because the lights weren't working. So there you are up there on stage. There was a few lights above, but there was no actual front light. So you find yourself talking like that. And all they can see is the top of your head. So this has good omens to be a good talk, because we can see each other. So I think most of you know that, in a nutshell, last summer I lost my funding, ended up leaving the city where I've been living for 25 years. I now live in a small Zen retreat center up in the mountains. They say it's in Los Gatos, but it's not actually in anywhere. It's just 300 or 400 acres of deer and coyote and things like that. And I have a very important job there. I am the chicken master. I look after the chickens, and at the moment I'm raising 4 little chicks. And I think actually we can learn a lot from chickens. There was a group there last weekend who were Kobun Chino, if you know who Kobun is. My lineage is Suzuki Roshi. Suzuki Roshi came in 1959, brought Kobun Chino over from Japan to help him make Tassajara Monastery. So Kobun Chino's people were there last weekend, and they were wonderful. And I met my twin sister, who's a Catholic nun, who is amazing, wearing the full wimple and everything, and her Buddhist priest robe on top of it. She always looked very red in the face. She also raises the chickens over there. So we were thinking how much chickens can actually teach us about life, And as you know, I work a lot. I still come in every couple of weeks to work with low-income people mainly. And a thought arose, strangely enough, while we were sitting there for that half hour. One thought arose. And it was, if only we could treat our homeless population like we treat the chickens. You have to legally have a warmish, dry, sheltered place for them to sleep at night and give them healthy food and clean water. So, don't know why that thought just occurred to me. If only we could treat our poor people like we treat our chickens. I do have a plan, a dream in mind to have an urban retreat centre, which would be a large garden, place for people to come. The meditation groups that my students are now running, that are open to everyone and free, are all in a large garden. And it just makes such a difference to people. Most of the people you see on the streets are not actually homeless. They live in a place such as they offered me when my health went last summer. Oh, well, then you should become homeless. Then you go in a shelter. Then you go in an SRO hotel if you're lucky, But there's no garden, there's no kitchen, there's no dining room. So when folks come to the garden to meditate, it's just wonderful. So I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. I never did get much in the way of donations. I always thought I should have made one of those commercials like we have for homeless cats and dogs, except have a homeless person, Because I can't watch those commercials. I'm sure that you're the same. That dog comes and the dog's looking at you. Why don't they feed me? Imagine having a homeless person. Why don't they feed me? Anyway. You never know what's going to happen at these things. So if I start talking about sex clubs in Amsterdam, please remind me it's not the Sex Workers Festival. We're actually trying to talk about the Dharma. As you know, probably I work at Maitri Hospice work. I go there when I'm in town, and some of my students volunteer there, and they're always looking for volunteers. It's a happy place because thankfully most of the AIDS crisis, at least, is going down a bit. So a lot of people who go there are actually there for respite care. And so they go in and get wonderful food and treated like kings and queens for a few months, and then they go home again. So it's a really, really great place. And I just did the big fundraiser for them a couple of weeks ago. And I have a group called Jana Drakka and Isan's Monks, because Isan Dorsey, if you don't know who Isan Dorsey was, you don't know your own history. He was basically, long story short, a drag queen who became a Dharma ancestor, a Zen Buddhist priest like me. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here. So Tuesday night I'm going to do a memorial for the people who have passed at Maitri. I do them every few months. And I thought you might like to hear the dedication, and I'll do it to Isan, but I want you to know that it's to all of you. In these rare, precious moments we get to spend together. And as you've heard me talk before, you probably know that I know that you're all perfect anyway, and wish that you all knew that too. And I think of it as the Isan Dorsey effect. You know, Isan, no one in a million years would have said, oh, Isan was perfect. He drank, he had fights, But in the end, he started something. He started Maitri Hospice that has helped people for years. And you could connect with him. I used to hang out in Marlena's bar, which is now also gone. It was a refuge from the Zen Center. I could run up the road and be with my people. And all the guys in there had heard of Isan. Oh, he would do anything for you. And when it comes right down to it, it's all our little cracks and funny little bits that make us perfect, that make us unique. So I think of it as the Isan Dorsey effect. Nobody wants to be a Ken doll or a Barbie doll. So don't think of your meditation or your practice, your way in life as a way of making you perfect, because you already are. You're just kind of uncovering that. So here's the dedication, and remind me, I did want to talk a little bit about the Heart Sutra. I'd had a request for that too, but I thought you might enjoy this. And remember, when you're listening to a Dharma talk, try not to go into the intellect. Everything you're thinking about what's coming out of this mouth is getting in the way of you actually hearing it and just bringing it straight in. So try not to think about it. Nothing I say is worth thinking about, honestly. The immaculate light reaches everywhere, leaving no place unilluminated. In tranquility, embracing all emptiness. Returning from oneness into the world of discrimination, the affairs of the mundane world are seen as but a dream. Friends, we gathered to pay tribute to our beloved Isan Dorsey, and to everyone in this room, and to everyone you know, and they know, and they know. Isan Dorsey was the precious dragon jewel whose simple acts of kindness gave rise to Maitri, caring for all without discrimination. A true Dharma treasure for everyone. We offer all our energies and all that are in this room to all beings, to love everywhere without limit. May the light of Isan's compassion, clear and complete as the blue sky, shine on, illuminating the way forward for us all. So don't ever forget the enormous power of a simple act of kindness. You know, I was very touched when I came in here and to realise that people had remembered what a terrible memory I have. And just people coming up and saying, you know, hello, my name's Fred, knowing that I've met you many times before, that little touch of kindness just, you know, it's those kind of little things that make life really, really worth living. So, the Heart Sutra. I mentioned a while back, I don't know, maybe when we were on retreat, wasn't that a wonderful retreat? Who was on that retreat at Vaishnav? Wasn't that great? We have to do that again. I think it was then maybe I mentioned something about the Heart Sutra and said that it contained all the teachings that we needed to know. and had you done any classes in it, and I think mostly people hadn't really heard of it much. Has anybody had a look at the Heart Sutra at all? Yeah, just a few. So when I started up in studying Zen Buddhism, somebody told me that all the teachings that you could possibly want are all contained in that one sutra. And it's only a page long, the way it's translated, although it's a shortened form of the sutra in 8,000 lines. So when I started studying, someone said, all you need to do is memorize that sutra in 8,000 lines and you'll have everything. And I'm like, okay. I can't even memorize addresses. Recently, in the last few years, the doctor thought I was actually going into dementia. And it turned out that actually I've had this my whole life. It's called synesthesia. I hear colours, I see sounds, like I'm very highly sensitive to things. But it does make everyday life challenging. And yes, I can't remember hardly anything. So I never did get round to memorising the 8,000 lines. Sorry. But what I did find out a few years ago, which was really helpful for study, was that all the teaching in a sutra is contained in the first paragraph. So that really cuts it down a bit. All you have to do is read the first paragraph of any of them, and you'll actually find in there the whole teaching, and the rest of the sutra is kind of unpacking it and explaining it and giving you examples and all the rest of it. But actually the teaching's just in that first paragraph. So I do want to leave plenty of time for talking. However, so the very first paragraph of the Heart Sutra is: Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing deeply the Prajna Paramita, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas in their own being are empty and thus relieved all suffering. Now, isn't that like the essence of perhaps why you're interested in Buddhism? Because that's what was being taught, relieving suffering. So there you have it, right in those few lines. In fact, you can even shorten it down to perceive that all 5 skandhas in their own being are empty and thus relieved all suffering. So if you just shorten it to that bit. Who's seen George Carlin? Who knows George Carlin? Have you seen that bit where he shortens the 10 Commandments into one? Have you seen? Oh, I highly recommend that one on YouTube. He gets the 10 Commandments and brings it down to one and then gets rid of that one. It's really good. There's so much harm has been done by religion. It's terrible. My God's right and I'm going to kill you to prove it. So you can actually bring it down to all 5 skandhas in their own being are empty. And thus you can relieve all your suffering. Okay, so let's move on to some poetry. So what are the 5 skandhas? Well, as you know, I know not everybody practices Zazen, which is a Japanese word which means just sitting. But basically, it's kind of handy, and I've taught it to many different kinds of folks, and it doesn't have to be religious or anything. But it does relieve all suffering. So I've taught it, as you know, in shelters and all over the place. And so it's basically developing the ability to stay right here. And then you might say, well, that's silly, I am right here. You know, oh, are you? Ha ha. The 5 skandhas are form, or the 5 aggregates is another word for them, and that's the Scottish pronunciation. Aggregates. Form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. So when we begin to sit, you might notice that pretty soon there's thoughts coming and blah, 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 and before you know it, it's like watching a free movie. It's just replays. You know, or worrying about the past. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, if only I had said such and such, you know, or the future. Oh, God, I hope that doesn't happen. Oh, I hope I have enough money. But in actual fact, right here, there's none of that going on. So, for example, can everybody hear my voice right now? Okay, so raise your hand if you're suffering from something that's happening right in this moment. What's happening?
I hardly hear you, so...
Ah, then I will talk louder. There, your suffering is ended. Ding! I'm sorry, honey. I understand what you mean. Yeah. And what was your suffering?
Oh, my fury.
Fury?
Yeah.
But is that happening? I mean, what's it about? Is it here right now? The person you're shooting?
In my head.
In your head. Ah, see, it's not real then. That's a really good question. What is real? You know, and everything that we have in our head, you could sit there right now and be furious, but you're missing this. And that's the whole point. That's what's so important about this. I mean, to actually be right here. And in the monastery, I was lucky enough to go in the monastery and be able to train for years, and it does help. But in my Sangha here in the city, the Zenkei Sangha, which means inconceivable joy, I offer full monastic training outside of the monastery because you can always be right here. You can always be right here. So I had the time there to try to work it down. So usually when you're sitting, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, usually when you're sitting, a thought comes to mind. Someone gave me a watch. Oh, how sweet. So a thought comes to mind, watch. There's form already. I can stop it there. I can notice that and just leave it there. Someone, say a person, comes to mind. I can leave it there. However, form usually goes into feelings. It's a lovely watch. Ooh, I wish I had that watch. So my perception, form, feeling, perception is, oh, what a lovely watch. Formation. Oh, watches like this should be on my wrist. You know, I want a watch like this. Consciousness, I now have a lovely watch. I've gone. I'm not here anymore. So that's the whole point that they're talking about in the Heart Sutra. All 5 skandhas are empty. You're furious at nothing. There's nothing to be furious at right now. There isn't, you know. Sorry, I could do something probably. But any feelings you're having right now, any thoughts you're having right now are simply distractions from just this. And that is the whole point of the Heart Sutra. It goes on, and because we get stuck on these things, you know, it goes no body, no mind, no colour, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch. And it's not that none of these things exist. I can touch things, and yeah, there's something here. But everything we think about it is extra. Everything we go into about it takes us away from just this. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with having thoughts coming through. My teacher says, thoughts come into the station, you just don't have to get on the train. Yeah. So that's the training for the end of suffering. But it doesn't have to be, I mean, catching your thoughts is actually kind of difficult. I remember when I first started practicing, they said, watch your thoughts. You know, catch one as it comes up. But they were like rabbits. They were all over the oh, you know, I've been thinking like this. So you can do very simple with like glass of water meditation. Now, you know my memory. Did I ever tell you the story about can of soda meditation? Okay, you can always stop me if I'm repeating myself. Catching your thoughts is not easy, and even following your breath, which is another traditional one, is not easy. But in actual fact, every single thing you can do, like elbow on the cushion, can be your meditation. And I'll freely admit I have PTSD that I work with very well, In fact, it's one of my specialities now. And PTSD is when you get triggered by emotion into a thought or a series of thoughts you can't control, and the emotions are all there with them, form, feeling, perception, boom, 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 boom. And so before I could work on the streets, I had to find ways of helping people de-trigger, because a lot of people who are, of course, in very stressful situations have PTSD. So sometimes you have to be very careful to be safe, because you don't want to set people off. So I was working with this lady in the women's shelter, and she compulsively stole dresses. And she'd been doing it for years. She was in her early 50s, and the place that she went to the most was Macy's, and it gotten so bad that now when she walked in the door, they immediately turned around and walked her back out again, because they knew and she knew that she'd just gone there. Be comfortable, by the way, it's all right to move along. They knew that she'd just come in to steal dresses. So I took her out to the cafe, and I got her a can of soda, and I said, I'm going to show you can of soda meditation. I said, so every time when you tell me, because she never could understand what this was all about, and most of us are acting out of old compulsions from the past. If you can truly be here, you're actually really here. You're not always reliving the past. So she couldn't stop it. So I said, every time you start to feel upset when you're telling me the story, concentrate on can of soda. That's your meditation. You can hear it, that sparkly sound. You can feel the cold. You can taste it, so it's really involving of the senses. So it's a very good focus. So she got it. She okay. So we started talking about it, and then she'd get upset, and then she'd hold the soda. And we did it for about 20 minutes, and finally she goes, oh my God, I got it. I went, what is it? She said, well, when I was about 8, my father was going out, and then she got upset, and she held the soda again, to get me a birthday present, and it was going to be this lovely dress. And of course, you know what's coming, my heart sank, and I said, and what happened? And she said, well, we never saw him again. And so she had been living out that unremembered trauma all those years, and it was too much to face until she learned how to do Kana Soda meditation. And then she laughed and said, well, you know what's really funny, Jana? I don't even like dresses. So, am I doing this? That was the first thing I realized when I was a child, that I had a set of cognitive things that were different. My dad, when I was about 5, I remember he worked shifts in a factory, and he came in really early and put a watch on my wrist. And I looked at it and I hadn't got a clue what it said. I've never been able to read watches. It's so interesting. Anyway, I think we've still got 10 minutes. So I stop at 1:45, right? So we have time for other people to talk. Okay, so that basically is the essence of the Heart Sutra. It's developing that ability to actually stay right here and to stay present, so that you don't go kind of running off up the road and become all involved with thoughts and feelings and perceptions and formations and consciousness and so forth. And as I say, the rest of it is a kind of an unpacking of all of that. Just simply, it's very Indian, done in the repetition kind of method. You get so fed up reading it, it's like, so let me just pause for a wee moment, actually, right there. Are there any questions about that before we go on, before I go on to something else? Because I know that there's so much. I had about 6 Dharma talks happened while we were sitting zazen. Just to check in, is that clear? Because I really think of all the teachings, of all the ways that they're taught in Buddhist practice to relieve suffering, I really believe that that's the heart of it right there. And we can train ourselves to do that, staying present with everything that we're doing. I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in universities. There's no one that cannot learn how to stay present. And even when we do get towards the end of our lives, of course everybody here is going to live forever, so we don't need to talk about it. But I used to be a caregiver for an elderly friend of mine, and she actually did develop Alzheimer's and went quite far away. And it was often upsetting. Della Gertz was her name. She was Suzuki Roshi's first student. Her and her friend Betty went to an Asian studies class in 1959. And they said, oh, there's a real Zen priest coming next week. You all have to come and meet him. And it was Suzuki Roshi, who hardly spoke much English. And Della and her friend Betty invited him for a cup of tea. And that's how the whole thing got started. And Della never said a wrong word to anyone or about anyone. I mean, way beyond anything I've ever been able to even think of achieving. Never said a wrong word about anyone. But as the Alzheimer's crept in, she began to feel dissatisfied and unhappy, even with the dishes I made her that she always liked. But the one thing that was there right up through the end, and also working in hospice, I can say the same thing. If you know how to stay present with whatever it is you want to use for a focus, staying present, then actually she did that right up till the end, and I've known people that have done it right up to the end, and it always brought a smile to her face. Because every breath is a gift, as you know. There's no guarantee that we're going to get another one of those. So absolutely every moment right here is a gift. And I think we can get caught up in those thoughts, expectations about ourselves. Oh, we have to be this, and I have to achieve that, and oh, you know, oh, if only I could. And yet right here, I mean, what could be better than us all sitting right here, right now? And that's one thing about being up in the country that it really helps me to remember when I get all caught up. I like to go out and sit. There's a little, well, I call it a lake, but they call it a pond. What do they know? So I go sit by the lake, and suddenly, just sitting in the earth, and I put my hand out and grab a leaf or something. It all just falls away. So there's something just urging me to keep belaboring this point, because it really is the end of suffering. Things can still drift in, but we don't have to go there with them all the time. And I remember when I was first training and my teacher said, oh, you must want everyone to love you. And I said, no, I just want to be okay for myself. Because often that's the person we're hardest on. I remember, good Lord, yes, I've been celibate for a decade now. I remember when I had lovers and they would, you know, all be attracted and, oh, you're wonderful and all the rest of it. And my theme underneath the smile was always, if only you knew. If only you knew what I'm really like. You know, so many of us grow up and end up, especially, you know, if God forbid we're gay, you know. There's something not quite right. There's something not quite right. There's a great book, if by any chance you're holding on to any of that, called There's Nothing Wrong With You. I can highly recommend it. But being okay for ourselves is so important, because that's the only way we can spread out that compassion and touch other people. I did bring a poem. Oh, did you see that old age thing I just did? I picked up the book, and what did I do next? Look for my glasses. I used to find it kind of distressing, you know, as I got older, and, you know, my faculties have always been very sharp, in a way. But this memory thing has been getting worse. And for a while it really bothered me that I couldn't remember people and can't remember where I'm going and things like that. And it kind of sequencing things has become hard. It's hard to file things. It's just very difficult. and forgetting, being in the middle of 3 different things and then forgetting what they all were, and then you write yourself a note and then you lose the note, and it was like, and then it struck me I could either be caught up in that form, feeling, perception, formation. I'm getting old and stupid, No, it's just this. It's just how it is. I'm still alive. My father didn't even get this old. I've told you before, I'm almost exactly like my father. Close but no cigar. And he didn't, what a terrible mind you have. But he didn't get out of his 50s, so I do kind of appreciate every moment. Are you still furious? I could start the sex jokes now. We've got like 5 minutes left. So this is one of my favourites. It is funny to have done such different talking engagements just in the last 2 days. We can maybe turn the microphone off for a moment. I did a stop. I love comedy, and in fact, Abbot Steve Stuckey, who died a while back, he heard me do stand-up Dharma comedy, and he said, "That's fantastic. You should take your show on the road. That's a great way to teach the Dharma." And I said, "That's funny. People have been telling me to take my show on the road for years." But it just, it's kind of funny. It is about perception too. I used a couple of poems at the last 2 speaking events, particularly at the Sex Workers Festival, and the mind is a lovely thing to play with, and the mind is, after all, the largest sex organ. So, stunned silence. Heart Sutra. Okay, let's talk about the Heart Sutra. But I used a poem that just played with people's perceptions. I said it was the most erotic, disturbingly pornographic, extremely sexual poem that I've ever heard. And I think it's in my bag out there, but basically it's incomprehensible Scottish words. And then the chorus line is, "Hey, Johnny lad, cock up your beaver." Right? And it's that reaction that people have to, naughty words. Cock up your beaver and cock it through spruce. And it actually is a poem about going into battle, cocking up the beaver skin hat. Somebody said to me, I read it to one of the young guys where I live, I said, "I'm thinking of using this to start off my comedy at the Sex Workers Festival." And he listened to it, and of course, incomprehensible, and then, "Hey, Johnny lad, cock up your beaver." And he said, "Is it about a hermaphrodite?" That hadn't occurred to me in all the years. So perception. It's fun. Life gets funnier when you see those perceptions arising, but you don't have to go with them. I just want to encourage you. It's the whole message of the Heart Sutra. And that's what makes comedy such a great fun. But it's all about playing with people's perceptions. I saw a comedian in Holland. I used to live in Amsterdam, and she did a 45-minute stand-up comedy spot. I hope you're not shocked, Dan. Right, I'm sorry. I just suddenly realised, we've got a lady back there. And all she did for 45 minutes was say the word for penis, as many different words she could think of for penis, and that's all she did for 45 minutes, and people were falling off their chairs, laughing and laughing. So perception can be fun, but is the root of suffering. If you go off up that road, you'll get to misery soon enough without, planning on it beforehand. So, Here's one of my favourites that kind of expresses that, and then we can have some questions. It's called Only Breath, and of course it's Rumi. Hey Johnny Lad, Cock Up Your Beaver, that is by Rabbie Burns, the well-known Scottish poet. Auld Lang Syne. He wrote Auld Lang Syne. It must be one of the most sung songs that nobody understands. Does anybody know what Auld Lang Syne means? It's, should old acquaintance be forgotten, never brought to mind. Should old acquaintance be forgotten, the days of Auld Lang Syne. Should old friends be forgotten and never brought to mind? Should old friends be forgotten and the days long gone by? Auld Lang Syne, old, long, gone since. Auld Lang Syne. So, don't let's forget each other. You know, so it's a memory of days gone by and a reminder not to forget each other as we go on. So, that's Auld Lang Syne. Only breath. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen. Not any religion or cultural system. I'm not from the East or the West. I'm not out of the ocean or up from the ground. I'm not natural or ethereal, not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. I'm not an entity in this world or the next. Did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is placeless, a trace of the traceless, neither body or soul. I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one call to and know, first, last, outer, inner, only that breath, breathing, human being. Only breath. So, you are the best you that can possibly be. You are that perfect you. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. And this is a beautiful circle of love. It really is just such a honour and a pleasure to be with everybody. I just feel so at home when I'm with you all. It's wonderful. So thank you so much. And any questions or discussions, we can have a little bit of time for that just now. Yes.
Yes, would you be kind enough to, and thank you, it's always such a delight to have you. So the consciousness is one of the sense organs, one of the skandhas, is that?
Yeah, form, feeling, perception, formation, consciousness.
And is awareness, would you describe awareness differently than consciousness?
I would say that those are all the components of awareness. The first thing we become aware of, if we have a quiet bit going on, is something arising. And it is actually possible, some of you on the retreat studied the jhanas with me, that deep concentration, and that helps if you can really deeply concentrate to actually see that arise. And if you can, I found, in fact I had to argue with people at the monastery, I found if you took the time, you could begin to see it arise. Like as I said, they looked like rabbits, my thoughts, when I first started. They were all over the place. But eventually, I could see like the two ears coming up, you know, and then I could just see the ground shake. So there is a place you can, before form. But that, it does take a lot of work. I mean, this is not easy stuff. But if you can leave it, I mean, if I can just leave it at cup, that's peaceful. That simple awareness of cup and nothing else. But it's very hard if you watch while you're sitting still. It's really hard just to leave that cup. It becomes blue cup, cold water, oh blah 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 blah. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get the idea that you have to stop thinking. I made that mistake for quite a couple of years when I first started. I thought, well, it's the thinking that's disturbing me, and emotions or thoughts too, the reactions. That's what's disturbing me, so I have to stop it. But the mind produces thoughts like the body produces sweat. It's not innately disturbing, and there's no reality to it. I mean, I could sit here and think I look like Marilyn Monroe. Nothing. But we get caught up in thoughts. They do seem real. It's like minibus meditation. Next time you get on the minibus, just look around and you'll have judged everybody. You don't know anybody, probably, but just looking at some, oh, I know what that kind of person's like. Oh, look, he's such and such. And that's just the mind's natural tendency. Read the Buddha's brain. That's the neurology of what we're doing, the Buddha's brain. Then the mind scans. We've been scanning for saber-toothed tigers for hundreds of years. And it's still a necessary function, but it does that by itself. You don't have to go like this the whole time. That's you moving into PTSD. So the mind does that, it scans, but we can retrain it. Just a matter of training. We don't do a lot of training with it, so why not train it to sit, stay, roll over?
Are you saying the skandhas are always sequential?
Not necessarily. I mean, it tends to go that way, but it's so fast that they do kind of smoosh in together. I mean, if you can get it down to seeing just the form first, People tend to think emotions are first. I found that really interesting. But you reacted to something. You can't just, although sometimes it feels like emotions just arise. And once again, it's a matter of being with, not suppressing. Like anger is really strong. Fury is a really strong emotion. But we don't want to just go firing off with it, But take that energy and use it. That's power. That's powerful. Americans often have a hard time dealing with anger. It seems like, we can't deal with that. That's negative. But it's actually just a strong energy. How are we? Oh, we should probably stop. Well, thank you once again. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Announcements? Any announcements? I'll make the Dana announcement. The Dana Bowl will be going around with the host, and Dana is the word for generosity, and we ask, the suggested donation is $10, but if you can't do that, then that's okay. Any other announcements? The host?
On May 24th, instead of the open discussion, we're going to have what's called the Open Sangha Days. We've had them in the past, we haven't for a long time, but it's a day in which you get to see, the parts behind the screen, who does what in the various groups, and sort of, as one person put it, the kind of magic of how it seems to keep happening. It's been, GBF has been going for probably since 1992 that we configured, and it's pretty amazing. So if you're one of the volunteers, definitely come, and if you're just part of the Sangha, when I first saw it, I was so proud to be a part of all that this organization is and does. So it's a great time to be with the Sangha.
That's next Sunday, right?
And our host today?
Oh, and just to say where I'm staying, you're always welcome to come by and visit. There's just hundreds of acres to go wandering in. You don't even have to talk to me if you don't want to. There's deer and turkeys and all kinds of things. And
chickens.
And the chickens, of course, not to be missed.
Where are you staying?
Pardon? It's Jikoji Retreat Center. And if you want a night away, you can always be my guest. You just have to let me know in advance without paying anything of it. So you're all warmly invited. My next stand-up comedy stint is May 28th. I think it's at the Centre for Sex and Culture. and it's part of the Gina Gold comedy show. It's called TMI. might be a reason for you not to come. And the title of it is Bitches Be Tripping. So you're all invited to that one. It's all the Dharma, of course. I actually wore my robes on for the first event. Took them off halfway through, but let's not go there. I said, as you get older, it used to be people would shout, take them off, take them off. As you get older, they're shouting, put them on, put them on. Anyway.
Oh, I'm the host. And the usual food that you expect, including 100% GMO gluten, disguised as hummus. We're not having any chicken salad today. And I'll be passing around a bowl. There is hot water for tea. Wash your cups. And people will meet at the door after the social time to go to lunch.
And with that, we will have our dedication.
By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness, which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Another luminous experiment. My name is Jim.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.